When a man reaches the age of 60, he has spent decades solving complex equations. He has calculated mortgages. He has calculated career moves. He has calculated his retirement. But when an older man re-enters the dating market, he often forgets to do the most important math of his entire life. Society tells us that love has no age limit, and that finding companionship in your golden years is a beautiful final chapter. But there is a silent, brutal reality that romantic comedies refuse to discuss. When you introduce a new romantic relationship into a fixed retirement plan, the variables fundamentally change. A man who has spent 40 years building an impenetrable financial fortress can unwittingly dismantle it from the inside out, simply because he allowed his loneliness to overwrite his logic. Today we are going to explore the intersection of behavioral psychology and late-stage financial planning. We will dissect the retirement math that nobody does before dating after 60. We will break down the 8 undeniable realities of financial self-preservation, and why protecting your assets is not an act of bitterness, but the ultimate expression of masculine wisdom. Let us open the ledger. Point number 1. Retirement fundamentally changes the rules of the game. When you are 30 years old, a financial mistake is merely an expensive lesson. It can almost always be corrected. You still have decades of neuroplasticity and physical energy to recover. You have more paychecks coming. You have more market cycles to ride. You have more opportunities, and most importantly, you have more time. But after the age of 60, time ceases to be an abundant resource. It becomes a rapidly depleting, non-renewable asset. Because you are no longer in the wealth accumulation phase of your life, the mathematics of survival shift entirely. Every single dollar lost matters significantly more. Every major financial decision carries exponentially greater consequences. You are no longer playing to win. You are playing to protect the kingdom you have already conquered. This does not mean that older men should never date. It means that the calculations are entirely different now. The margin for error has shrunk to microscopic levels. A bad investment in a toxic relationship at 30 is a setback. A bad investment at 65 can force you out of a comfortable retirement and back into the workforce. And that is a reality where millions of men get caught completely off guard. Point number 2. Loneliness possesses the terrifying power to distort financial judgment. Human beings are, fundamentally, emotional creatures. We are biologically wired for tribal connection. And the pain of loneliness, particularly after a divorce or the loss of a spouse, can be an incredibly powerful psychological fog. Sometimes, a highly intelligent senior man, a man who spent his career ruthlessly analyzing business contracts and who would never make a reckless stock market investment, suddenly begins making devastatingly emotional decisions. Why? Because the biochemical rush of feeling connected to someone acts as a psychological anesthetic. In a desperate bid to keep this new feeling alive, the financial boundaries begin to collapse. He begins paying for expensive vacations. He starts covering her unexpected emergencies and living expenses. He buys lavish gifts. He begins making verbal promises of financial security that he never, in his right mind, planned to make. None of these decisions seem dangerous individually. They feel like chivalry, but cumulatively, they can quietly and aggressively reshape the trajectory of an entire retirement plan. The danger, gentlemen, is not love. The danger is making permanent financial decisions while under the temporary influence of emotional intoxication. Point number 3. The unseen assassin of wealth, lifestyle inflation. Many retired men live comfortably, not because they are billionaires, but because they possess absolute mastery over their budget. They know exactly what their fixed income allows. Their expenses are perfectly dialed into their lifestyle. Then, a new relationship begins. Suddenly, the baseline of the lifestyle completely changes. More restaurants, more weekend getaways, more expensive wine, more entertainment, more spending. Individually, $100 here or $500 there seems utterly harmless to a man with a solid nest egg. But retirement mathematics depend entirely on one unbreakable principle: consistency. A budget that was meticulously designed for one person, living a peaceful, quiet life, looks drastically different when it is forcefully stretched to support the social and romantic lifestyle of two. The cost of impressing a new partner introduces a variable of geometric growth to your expenses. Because the inflation is subtle and tied to romantic experiences, many men never notice the bleeding until years later. By the time they realize their principal investment is shrinking, the lifestyle is already established, and downgrading it will inevitably cause friction in the relationship. Point number 4. Protecting your assets is not a sign of distrust. This is the exact psychological juncture where many people become highly uncomfortable. In modern society, talking strictly about money in the context of a new romance feels awkward. Women will often use shaming tactics. They will say, "If you really loved me, you wouldn't need a prenuptial agreement." Or, "Why are you being so defensive? Don't you trust me?" Do not fall for this emotional manipulation. Responsible financial planning is not a symptom of distrust or paranoia. It is the ultimate symptom of wisdom. Let us look at basic human logic. Insurance exists because life is unpredictable. Estate planning exists because life is unpredictable. Retirement planning exists because life is unpredictable. The exact same logic must apply to relationships later in life. You are combining two complex histories, two different financial habits, and two different biological futures. An older man who thinks carefully about financial boundaries, who refuses to merge bank accounts, and who demands legal asset protection before cohabitation is not being selfish. He is being a responsible steward of his own life's labor. A high-value woman will respect the shield. Only a predator gets angry at a locked door. Point number 5. The ultimate purpose of retirement is freedom. Let us examine the true psychology of wealth accumulation. Most men do not spend decades working grueling hours, sacrificing their bodies, and saving money because they have a romantic obsession with spreadsheets. They do not hoard capital simply to look at numbers on a screen. They save, they invest, and they bleed for one singular purpose. They want to buy their freedom. The freedom to travel without asking a boss for permission. The freedom to rest when their bones ache. The freedom to help their bloodline. The freedom to wake up on a Tuesday morning and experience absolute, unadulterated peace on their own terms. When considering a new relationship, the question every older man must ask himself is brutally simple. Will this relationship increase my freedom, or will it gradually reduce it? If a new partner demands that you finance her lifestyle, if she forces you to abandon your hobbies to entertain her, or if her presence creates financial anxiety that keeps you awake at night, she is actively stealing the freedom you just spent half a century buying. That answer matters vastly more than the temporary thrill of romance. Point number 6. Emotional decisions can quickly mutate into fatal expenses. If you consult any high-level financial expert, they will all repeat the exact same, unbreakable principle. Never, under any circumstances, make major financial decisions while in a heightened emotional state. Yet, romantic relationships are designed by biology to manufacture extreme emotions: excitement, hope, intense attachment, the intoxicating optimism of a second youth. Sometimes these biochemical highs encourage a man to make choices he would relentlessly mock if he saw another man making them. He begins writing large checks. He co-signs leases. He makes joint purchases for real estate or vehicles. He makes verbal promises that slowly crystallize into heavy, crushing legal obligations. This is why, for the senior man, patience becomes one of the most lethal and valuable skills in his arsenal. You must force the relationship to survive the test of time before you even consider opening the ledger. Let the biochemical fog of the honeymoon phase clear. Let logic return to the throne of your mind. Only then can you accurately calculate the true cost of her presence. Point number 7. The real definition of wealth that older men discover. Something incredibly profound happens to the human psyche with the passage of time. Many older men begin completely redefining the concept of wealth. At 30, wealth means accumulation. It means a bigger house, a faster car, and outward displays of dominance. At 40, wealth means status. It means career success, power, and climbing the hierarchy. But at 60, wealth often means something entirely different. It transcends the material world. Wealth becomes time. Wealth becomes health. Wealth becomes unshakable peace. Wealth becomes absolute freedom. Many senior men awaken to the realization that these intangible assets are infinitely more valuable than the digits in a bank account. A billionaire with high blood pressure and a toxic marriage is a beggar compared to a middle-class man who wakes up to a quiet house and a peaceful mind. Because they have finally discovered what true wealth is, they They become ferociously protective of it. They refuse to let a bad relationship bankrupt their peace, steal their health, or consume their remaining time. Point number 8. The question very few men have the courage to ask. Before committing to a new relationship, before dating again, many older men ask a very basic, superficial question. Do I like this person? But a sovereign man, a man who understands the brutal mathematics of his age, asks a much better, much harder question. Does this relationship align with the peaceful life I have spent decades bleeding to build? Because physical attraction is important. Companionship is important. But protecting the future you sacrificed your youth to secure is paramount. Wise decisions in your senior years require the perfect marriage of emotion and logic. You cannot afford to have one without the other. You must be willing to walk away from a beautiful illusion if the math does not add up to peace. If this video brought you clarity, I want to hear your truth. Head down to the comments and tell me, have you ever seen a man's retirement derailed by an emotional relationship? What financial boundaries do you refuse to compromise on? Your scars and your wisdom will help guide the men who are still fighting blindly through the storm. If you found value in this deep dive into male psychology and financial preservation, please hit the like button, subscribe to the Sage Academy channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a lesson. Thank you for watching. Until next time, guard your sanctuary and protect your legacy.